Let's talk about safety of the game, though, because you just chit-chatted about that there at the end. Obviously, devastating thing happened in the hockey world. Devastating.
Horrible.
And I know in the NHL, and rest in peace, by the way, he was a Penguin, so we appreciate him mightily. Got hit with a skate in the throat. Now, this is international. This is over in England, I do believe. There's a full conversation about did that guy do that on purpose, and he has a little bit of a rap sheet doing this. Nonetheless, let's stay out of that. Let's keep with you, though. Rest in peace, Adam Johnson. Let's keep with the NHL. There has been a conversation of potentially wearing a throat protector because there is sticks and skates. Where do you fall on that, especially with what is happening recently in hockey?
That's something that's been an ongoing discussion in terms of safety and equipment and Kevlar, whether it's for legs or wrists or the neck. And to the extent anything would be mandated, it's something that A, there needs to be the appropriate education, and B, it's something we do in consultation with the Players Association. We have a standing committee that meets regularly and studies these issues. And this has been a topic of ongoing discussion, and it will continue to be. Players are free to wear Kevlar protection for the neck and whatever. And I think as part of the evolution, it's no different than what we did with visors. It took us a couple of decades to agree to make it mandatory, but more and more through education, players had increasingly been wearing visors. They were coming into the game from other places as they were youngsters, wearing visors, and we continued to encourage them not to take them off. And then ultimately we got to the point where we made it mandatory. I think over time, as we continue to work with the Players Association, we'll get there as well. And as I said, there's nothing to stop players from better protecting themselves, whether it's the neck or wrists or legs, from wearing more protective equipment. And that's something we're going to continue to study and educate on. But I think it's part of the natural evolution. And what happened in Europe was nothing short of a horrific tragedy, no matter how it happened. And it's something that I think has raised consciousness. And in terms of the consciousness raising, that the discussions are not a bad thing to happen.
Absolutely devastating what happened over there. A massive part of hockey for a long time has been fighting, has been the acceptance of fighting, of like, hey, you disrespected or took a cheap shot on my guy. We are handling this right now. To be honest, I think society kind of needs that back in moderation, in a healthy way, instead of what we become. Now, I know that you guys have kind of leaned away from potential the fighting being a major part of hockey. Is there a happy balance there? I think there's more fights this year than there's ever been. What do you think about it, and how do you guys view it going forward? Because for me, dipshit in a sleeveless hockey sweater here, like, love it whenever he says, oh, you want to hit my guy? I don't think so. We're doing this. But I know there's people that feel differently. I understand that there's people that feel differently, Gary.
There is a balance. So let's take a step back. First of all, when you think about the nature of the game, it's high speed. Players are encouraged to make physical contact with each other. It's emotional. It's nonstop. And by the way, everybody's carrying a stick. Fighting in the spontaneous sense tends to act as a bit of a thermostat when things happen in the course of a game, and it keeps the game under control. What's really come out of the game is the staged fighting and the designated fighter. And part of that is because the competitive balance is so intense, teams have concluded you can't have a designated fighter anymore. What you really need is skilled players, and you don't want to give up a roster spot. 80% of our games don't have fights in them, roughly. The other 20%, the fights tend to be spontaneous in the heat of the moment, and I think the game's in a good place with that. We're obviously aware of health and safety concerns, and that's something we've been dealing with the Players Association for decades. But I think right now we're in a good place. Yes, fighting is penalized, but fighting in the heat of the moment is something that has been a good outlet. And we don't need the stage fighting anymore. And I think the game's better without it.
Hey, feels like that's probably the right answer, especially if I was sitting in your seat. But I'll tell you what, when the boys form a circle, and he's got the sticks, and they say, have at it, boys. You know, that's, your sport's the only one that has that. Your sport's the only one that has it.
It happens.
Yeah, it's going to happen forever, we would assume.